Welcome to long-form content of Tech Bytes and News. This is a compilation on latest news and articles featured on Hacker News. You can find the original links of articles in the description. Please like and subscribe to support future content. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into the exciting world of JavaScript Temporal, a game-changer for date and time manipulation in JavaScript. It's finally arriving in browsers.
Yeah, I've been hearing whispers about this. The current date object is, let's say, less than ideal, right? What's the core problem?
Precisely. The JavaScript date object, inherited from Java's early, flawed implementation, is almost 30 years old. It lacks proper time zone support, its parsing is notoriously unreliable, and its mutability leads to insidious bugs. Think about the headaches with daylight saving time or historical calendar changes. A nightmare.
Oh, I know the pain. I've spent countless hours debugging date-related issues. So, temporal is a complete overhaul?
Absolutely. It's a full replacement, designed for reliability and predictability. It introduces concepts like instance, unique points in time, wall clock times, regional time, and durations, all neatly organized into a comprehensive API. We're talking over 200 utility methods.
Wow, 200 methods! That's a significant improvement. Can you give me a quick example of how it simplifies things?
Sure. Getting the current time in a specific time zone is a breeze. With temporal, you can simply do temporalnow.plain_date time ISO America new_York and get the date and time in New York, handling all the complexities automatically. No more manual calculations.
That's incredibly clean. What about other calendar systems? I've had to deal with those before, and it's a mess.
Temporal handles that too. It supports calendars beyond the Gregorian calendar, including Hebrew, Chinese, and Islamic calendars. The example in the article shows how easy it is to find the next Chinese New Year using Temporal's built-in functions. It's truly amazing.
This sounds fantastic. But what about browser support? Is it widely available?
Not yet. It's still in experimental stages. Firefox Nightly has the most mature implementation, but Chrome and Safari are working on it. There's also a polyfill available at js-temporal/polyfill, so you can experiment with it now, regardless of your browser.
A polyfill, great. So it's not quite ready for production, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. The compare methods for sorting durations also look very promising.
Exactly. The compare methods are elegant and efficient. It's a small detail, but it showcases the overall design philosophy of Temporal: clean, efficient, and powerful. This is a huge step forward for JavaScript.
I agree. This is a significant improvement over the current state of date and time handling in JavaScript. Thanks for the summary.
My pleasure. And a big thank you to Eric Meyer, Joshua Chen, and Andre Bargoul for their incredible work on this. Remember to check out the MDN documentation. It's incredibly comprehensive, over 270 pages. That's all for Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day, and happy coding.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating article about Rust's nightly feature, Core.io, borrowed buff, and why its author considers it Rust's worst feature. That's a hot topic, folks.
Oh, I'm all ears. I've heard whispers about this. What's the core issue here? Is it just performance, or something more fundamental?
It's about performance, yes, but it's also about the complexities introduced to achieve that performance. The author starts with a simple, slow _copy function that copies data between I/O streams. The problem? The buffer is repeatedly zeroed, even though the read operation overwrites it. The compiler can't optimize this away.
Right, a classic optimization hurdle. So borrowed buff is supposed to solve this by avoiding unnecessary zeroing, correct?
Exactly. Borrowed buff is designed to track how much of a buffer is initialized, allowing it to only zero the uninitialized portion. But the implementation introduces a whole host of new problems. It's not a simple drop-in replacement. Existing APIs need explicit support for it.
So it's not a seamless integration? That sounds like a major drawback. What are some of the other issues?
Yeah. The author points out several. First, optionality. Many libraries don't have the necessary read_buff method. Second, ergonomics. Integrating borrowed buff with existing functions that take and mut arguments is cumbersome. Third, lack of generality. It only works with us 8 slices, limiting its applicability.
Wow, that's a lot of issues. It sounds like the cure is worse than the disease in this case. Is there a better approach?
That's the million-dollar question. The author explores alternatives, like using maybe unit and a hypothetical slice freeze mute function. But even these run into problems with memory management and the potential for unexpected behavior due to things like MADV_FREE in the kernel.
MADV_FREE? I'm not familiar with that. Could you elaborate?
Sure. MADV_FREE is a system call that tells the kernel it can discard the contents of a memory page. This can lead to unpredictable results if you try to read from that page later. The author shows how this can cause problems even with low-level code.
So even if you could safely read uninitialized memory, there are still underlying system-level issues that could bite you? That's .uh.
Precisely. The article concludes that, in most cases, the performance gains from avoiding zeroing are negligible compared to the complexity and potential risks introduced by borrowed buff. The author advocates for following Knuth's advice. Don't prematurely optimize. Focus on the critical 3%, not the trivial 97%.
I see. A strong argument for simplicity and avoiding premature optimization. It seems like borrowed buff is a case study in how a well-intentioned optimization can backfire spectacularly.
Absolutely. It highlights the trade-offs involved in low-level programming and the importance of considering the broader system context, a great reminder to prioritize correctness and maintainability. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating project, a homemade pipe organ. It's a story of ingenuity, persistence, and a whole lot of woodworking.
A homemade pipe organ? That sounds incredibly ambitious. I'm already intrigued. What's the backstory?
It all started in 1992 with a university music elective. Our builder, let's call him the builder, had zero musical background, could barely tell if notes were ascending or descending, but he took the class anyway. He fell in love with the sound, but couldn't afford a synthesizer, so he built an organ.
Wow, that's dedication. So he just jumped right in and started building pipes?
Not quite. First, there were experiments, loud, not so harmonious experiments using a vacuum cleaner motor as an air pumper. Turns out, vacuum cleaners are noisy and produce excessive air pressure. He learned a lot from those early failures, though.
I see. So, trial and error, what was the next big hurdle?
Designing the wind chest, the part that controls the airflow to the pipes. He didn't even know the proper term at first, and he had a leather shortage, so he had to design a gasketless system. Ingenious!
That's impressive problem solving. What about the pipes themselves? How did he make those?
He went through several iterations. The initial design was complex, but he eventually landed on a simpler, easier-to-build design. He built about 3 octaves worth of pipes, carefully adjusting their geometry for optimal sound.
And the vacuum cleaner motor, did that last?
No. Running it at low voltage for extended periods wasn't ideal. It eventually died, but luckily he found a replacement. A quiet 1/12 HP motor and blower for only $20.
$20? That's a steal. What about the final product? How did it sound?
Well, there are sound samples online. They range from low C chords to scales played across 4 octaves simultaneously. It's not a professional-grade instrument, but it's playable, and it's a testament to his dedication. And it's a great conversation starter.
Absolutely. This whole story is inspiring. It shows that with enough passion and ingenuity, you can build almost anything. Thanks for sharing this amazing story.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fantastic milestone achieved by LibreOffice. 400 million downloads. Incredible.
Wow, that's a huge number. I'm particularly interested in the growth trajectory. The blog post mentions periods of rapid growth, stagnation, and then another upswing. Can you elaborate on those phases?
Absolutely. The initial surge, between 2011 and 2014, saw a jump to 30 million downloads. Amazing, right? This was despite significant opposition from a project specifically designed to undermine LibreOffice. Then, things leveled off for a while, coinciding with the perceived death of desktop office suites and the cloud's rise in popularity.
Interesting. So the cloud wasn't the end of desktop software after all.
Exactly. The subsequent upswing shows that desktop suites are here to stay, coexisting perfectly with cloud-based solutions. People realize the limitations of cloud-only solutions. It's a testament to LibreOffice's resilience and usefulness.
The blog also mentions attacks on the download counter in 2019. How did that affect the data?
Yeah, that's a crucial point. There were attempts to artificially inflate the download numbers, but the Document Foundation cleaned up the data as much as possible, so the reported 400 million figure is as accurate as they could make it. Impressive work.
So after 2019, the growth continued, albeit more slowly, reaching over 35 million downloads in 2024 alone. That's still a significant number. What's the average annual download count?
The average is approximately 28.6 million downloads per year since 2011. That's consistently strong growth. It highlights the sustained demand and popularity of LibreOffice.
It's truly remarkable. It speaks volumes about the community's dedication and the software's quality. I'm curious, what's the next goal for LibreOffice?
That's a great question. While the blog post doesn't explicitly state a specific target, I think we can safely assume they'll continue to strive for further growth and improvement. The 500 million mark is probably on their radar. The blog post ends with a heartfelt thank you to everyone involved, developers, contributors, and users, which is a nice touch.
Absolutely. It's a collaborative effort, and this milestone is a shared success. A well-deserved celebration.
Indeed. And for our listeners, if you haven't already, check out LibreOffice. It's a fantastic free and open-source office suite. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating PLOS genetics paper, investigating the case of human nose shape and climate adaptation. It's a really exciting piece of research, isn't it?
Absolutely, I've been looking forward to this. So what's the core argument? Is it simply that nose shape is determined by climate?
Well, it's more nuanced than that. The researchers investigated whether climate adaptation drove the diversity in human nose shapes we see today. They didn't just assume a direct correlation. They used sophisticated statistical methods to test their hypothesis.
I see. So what methods did they employ?
Primarily, they used QST-FST comparisons. QST measures the genetic differentiation of a quantitative trait, like nose shape, across populations, while FST measures genetic differentiation at neutral markers. If QST is significantly higher than FST, it suggests selection, not just drift, is at play.
Right, that makes sense. But how did they account for the fact that you can't really do controlled experiments on humans?
That's a crucial point. They cleverly addressed this by using a sensitivity analysis. They estimated QST under the assumption that the heritability of the trait is the same within and between populations. Then, they checked how robust their results were to variations in that assumption.
And what were the results of this analysis?
They found that Nair's width and Aller base width showed significantly higher QST than FST, suggesting selection. This wasn't true for all nose shape measurements, though.
So only some aspects of nose shape seem to be under selection?
Exactly. And importantly, their sensitivity analysis showed that these results held even if the initial assumption about heritability wasn't perfectly accurate.
Okay, so selection is involved. But did they prove climate was the selective pressure?
They investigated that by correlating nose shape with climate variables like temperature and humidity. They found a strong correlation between Nair's width and both temperature and absolute humidity, but not relative humidity.
So wider natures are associated with warmer, more humid climates?
Precisely. This aligns with the idea that nose shape helps condition inhaled air. Now, narrower noses might be better for cold, dry climates, while wider ones are more efficient in warm, humid ones.
But wasn't there a caveat? I recall something about the European population.
Yes, a very important point. When they removed the European population from their analysis, the correlation between Nährwert and climate became much weaker. This suggests the correlation might be driven, at least partly, by the European population's adaptation to colder climates.
So it's not a simple case of climate being the only factor?
Absolutely not. The paper also discusses other potential factors, such as sexual selection. Nose shape is sexually dimorphic, meaning males and females have different nose shapes on average. This dimorphism could be influenced by mate selection preferences, potentially reinforcing climate adaptation.
That's a really interesting point. It adds another layer of complexity. So what's the overall takeaway?
The study provides strong evidence that natural selection, likely driven by climate adaptation, played a role in shaping human nose diversity. However, it's not a simple story. Sexual selection and other factors likely contributed. More research is needed, especially with more diverse populations, to fully understand this complex evolutionary history.
Definitely. This research opens up many exciting avenues for future studies. Thanks for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of human nose shape evolution. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of PCBs, specifically the evolution and purpose of copper pores and ground planes. It's a deep dive, so buckle up.
I'm ready. So, the article starts by showing a stark contrast between older and newer PCBs. The difference is striking, isn't it? It's not just miniaturization. It's the massive use of copper pores in modern designs. What's the deal?
Exactly. The shift is dramatic. The article points out three main reasons. First, high-speed electronics benefit from improved signal integrity with copper pores. Think smartphones and modern computers. That speed demands it. Second, FCC regulations on unintentional radio emissions, copper pores, help reduce those emissions, saving manufacturers time and money on testing. And third, it's a bit of a fashion statement. Hobbyists often emulate industry trends, even if they don't fully understand the underlying reasons.
Interesting. So it's not always purely technical. But the core question remains. Why do copper pores actually work? The article gets into some serious electromagnetism here, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's all about inductance. The flow of electrons isn't just about particles bumping into each other. It's about electromagnetic fields. Materials like ferrite absorb energy from these fields, creating inductance. Think of it like a resistance for AC signals. A common mode choke, for example, uses this principle to filter out common mode noise.
Right, common mode chokes. I get that. But how does this relate to a copper pore on a PCB? It's not like there's a ferrite core there.
That's the clever part. Even without ferrite, any trace on a PCB has inductance, albeit much smaller. With a copper pore on the back layer, the return current path for a signal trace on the top layer is essentially mirrored. This creates a situation similar to a common mode choke, where magnetic fields cancel out, reducing impedance and improving signal integrity. It's a clever way to manage inductance without adding bulky components.
So the copper pore acts as a kind of distributed common mode choke? That's a really elegant explanation. But the article also mentions potential downsides, right? Like increased capacitance?
Precisely. While reducing inductance is beneficial, the copper pores also increase shunt capacitance across the entire PCB. This is generally fine for digital signals. But in analog circuits, that extra capacitance can be a real problem, potentially leading to instability. It's a trade-off you need to consider.
I see. So it's not a universal panacea. The article emphasizes that for many hobby projects, it's not strictly necessary. It's more of a convenience than an absolute requirement, unless you're dealing with high-speed interfaces.
Exactly. For ESP32s, Raspberry Pis, or 8-bit AVRs, adding copper pores is often just a matter of making life easier. But once you start working with MIPI DSI, USB 3.0, or other high-speed interfaces, understanding the implications of inductance and capacitance becomes crucial. It's all about context and understanding the trade-offs.
This has been a really insightful discussion. It's amazing how much is packed into something as seemingly simple as a copper pour on a PCB. Thanks for breaking it down.
My pleasure. And remember, listeners, always consider the context of your project. Don't just blindly follow trends. Understand the underlying principles. That's the key to good PCB design. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating analysis of Product Hunt, exploring the surprising dichotomy between gamers and nihilists in the tech world. It's a really exciting piece.
I'm intrigued. What's the core argument? Is it just about gaming versus productivity apps?
It's more nuanced than that. The study analyzed 7 years of Product Hunt data, over 70,000 products, and almost 400,000 user profiles. They found a remarkably low overlap between users who promote games and those who promote productivity apps. This isn't just a preference. It's a fundamental clash of value systems.
A clash of value systems? That sounds dramatic. Tell me more.
Absolutely. They label the productivity app enthusiasts nihilists. Not in the philosophical sense, but because their focus is on optimization for optimization's sake. They're endlessly chasing efficiency, often without producing much of real value. It's a vicious cycle.
Interesting. So the gamers, on the other hand.
The gamers value fun and experience as ends in themselves. They clearly separate utilitarian and non-utilitarian activities. Waste, to them, isn't inherently negative. It's part of a meaningful experience. They're not necessarily gamers in the traditional sense. It's about prioritizing enjoyable, non-productive activities.
So it's about how they value time, right? The nihilists try to minimize wasted time, ironically wasting it in the process, while gamers embrace it as part of a fulfilling life.
Exactly. The study even connects this to business models. Venture-backed startups, often driven by the nihilist mindset, prioritize appearances of productivity over actual results. Game studios, on the other hand, tend to be more directly accountable to their customers and their bottom line.
That's a really insightful connection. But how did they arrive at this nihilist label? It seems a bit strong.
I see your point. It's a provocative term, and the authors acknowledge that. But it highlights the irony of the productivity-obsessed individuals who end up achieving very little. They're trapped in a cycle of optimizing tools, not outcomes.
Okay, I get it. So what about the data itself? How did they support this claim?
They used a lot of data visualization. They looked at the most common tags on Product Hunt, showing the low correlation between games and productivity. They also analyzed geographic data from user profiles, showing global distribution of makers and hunters. There were some surprising findings there, like the high number of Ukrainian and Russian makers.
Wow. And what about the implications? What are the broader takeaways?
The authors argue that this gamer-nihilist dichotomy reflects a broader issue in Silicon Valley, where the focus on valuation often overshadows actual value creation. The recent downturn in the tech market might be a correction, forcing a shift towards more sustainable business models.
It's a compelling argument. It makes you think about the whole startup culture and its obsession with growth at all costs.
Exactly. And the study also touches on how the nihilist approach can negatively impact the gaming industry, citing Microsoft's history of acquiring and then seemingly destroying game studios as a prime example. They also discuss the backlash against NFTs in gaming as a rejection of the nihilist attempt to commodify fun.
Fascinating stuff. It's a really thought-provoking analysis. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating blog post, Hard Mode Rust, a deep dive into building a ray tracer with severely limited APIs. Get ready for some serious technical discussion.
I'm pumped. This sounds intense. The core idea is to restrict the Rust code to avoid dynamic memory allocation, right? Like a hardcore C programmer's challenge to Rust and C++?
Exactly. The author critiques RAII, resource acquisition, is initialization, a cornerstone of both Rust and C++, arguing that its ease of resource allocation leads to sloppy resource management. He points out potential issues like decreased reliability, unpredictability in resource consumption, performance hits from scattered cleanup code, and a less organized architecture.
So instead of the usual Rust approach, they're pushing for a more controlled, static allocation model. That's a significant constraint. What's the hard mode approach here?
Hard mode means splitting the program into a std binary and a hash, no-alloc library. The binary handles OS resource requests, while the library receives a fixed-size memory slice for all its operations. Think of it as a self-contained, limited resource environment.
That's a clever way to enforce the constraints. So, the ray tracer is the example application? How does that work within these limitations?
Yep. The ray tracer's output is a pixel buffer, usually a box less than greater than. But in hard mode, they use a slice and a mut, borrowed from the main function, introducing lifetimes to manage the memory. This adds complexity, especially with nested structures and functions.
Lifetimes everywhere. I can imagine the challenges with managing those. What about parallelism? Ray tracing is highly parallelizable.
Right. Instead of Rayon, the author uses a custom thread pool design inspired by Sorbet. It broadcasts jobs to all threads, waits for completion, and uses a concurrent queue to distribute work, like slicing the image into rows for processing.
Interesting approach, avoiding the complexities of Rayon's API in this constrained environment. But how do they handle the dynamic nature of scene descriptions? Aren't those inherently variable in size?
That's a great point. They use a two-pass parsing system. The first pass counts objects, then memory is allocated, and the second pass parses the data into the allocated space. It's a clever workaround for the lack of dynamic allocation.
Smart. And what about more complex data structures like meshes? Those often involve shared vertices, right?
Yes, they use a more compact representation with separate arrays for vertices and faces, avoiding redundancy. This extends to nested structures like BVHs, bounding volume hierarchies, for performance optimization, which also require careful lifetime management.
This sounds incredibly intricate. The author mentions using a bump allocator. Is that a custom allocator?
Yes. A simple bump allocator is implemented to manage the fixed size memory. It allocates sequentially, avoiding deallocation, and handles potential out-of-memory errors. There's also a clever use of scratch space for temporary allocations during BVH construction.
Wow, this is a really impressive feat of engineering. The author seems quite pleased with the outcome, despite the complexities. What were their main conclusions?
The author was surprised it worked as well as it did. They found that the and-mut-t pattern for owning pointers worked surprisingly well, even with nested structures. While the code is complex, the author appreciates the predictability of memory usage in this approach.
It's a fascinating exploration of the trade-offs between ease of use and explicit control over resources. Thanks for breaking this down. This hard-mode Rust approach really highlights the power and flexibility of the language.
Absolutely. It's a testament to Rust's capabilities, even under extreme constraints. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We'll catch you next time with more exciting tech discussions. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating report from TechCrunch. A majority of U.S. teens have lost trust in big tech. It's a huge deal, isn't it?
Absolutely. This isn't just a minor dip in approval ratings, it's a generational shift in how young people view these tech giants. What are the key findings?
The report, based on a common-sense media survey of over 1,000 teens, paints a pretty bleak picture across the board. Whether it's caring about teen well-being, making ethical decisions, protecting data, or responsible AI use, a majority of teens express low trust in companies like Google, Apple, Meta, TikTok, and Microsoft. Wow.
Wow, indeed. That's a pretty damning indictment. What's driving this widespread distrust? Is it just a knee-jerk reaction, or are there deeper reasons?
Oh, it's definitely not just a knee-jerk reaction. Years of scandals. From the NSA revelations to Cambridge Analytica, Frances Haugen's leaks, and numerous congressional hearings have eroded public trust. And let's not forget the disingenuous $1 million donations from tech CEOs to the Trump administration. It all adds up.
It's interesting you mentioned the political angle. I hadn't considered that as a major factor, but it makes sense. These actions, regardless of political alignment, likely fueled the perception of big tech as prioritizing profit over ethical considerations. Right?
Exactly. And this distrust extends to AI. Nearly half of the teens surveyed doubted big tech's ability to make responsible AI decisions. This is particularly concerning given the increasing prevalence of generative AI and its potential impact on everything from education to misinformation.
That's a huge point. The report highlights the issue of fake images and online content misleading teens. A third of teens even worry about interacting with bots without realizing it. Scary.
Totally scary. And it's not just about being misled. The teens also want safeguards. A significant majority called for privacy protections, transparency, and labeling of AI-generated content. They even believe content creators should be compensated when their data is used by AI systems. Makes sense!
It's remarkable how aware these teens are of the ethical and practical implications of AI. They're not just passive consumers, they're demanding accountability and responsible development. This is a call to action for big tech, isn't it?
Absolutely. This isn't just about maintaining a positive public image. It's about the future of the industry. If big tech fails to address these concerns and rebuild trusts, especially with younger generations, they risk losing relevance and market share. It's a critical juncture.
I agree. This report serves as a powerful wake-up call. The loss of trust among teens is a significant indicator of broader societal concerns about big tech's practices. We need to see substantial changes, not just empty promises.
Precisely. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating GitHub project, T-Moji, a command line tool that adds emojis to your terminal output. It's like the classic T command, but with a fun, visual twist.
That sounds awesome. I'm intrigued. So how does this emoji-infused T actually work?
Essentially, T-Moji uses a core ML model to predict and prepend an emoji to each line of text. It's pretty clever. It analyzes the text to determine the most appropriate emoji. Think of it as automated contextual emoji insertion for your command line.
So it's not just randomly slapping emojis on, it's actually trying to be relevant? That's a pretty sophisticated approach. How's the installation process?
Super easy. If you're using Homebrew, it's a simple brew install willswire/tap/Tmoji. One-liner installation. Love it!
Nice and clean. And the usage? Is it as straightforward as the standard T command?
Pretty much. You pipe your command's output into Tmoji, and it sends the emoji-enhanced output to both your terminal and a specified file. You can even append to existing files using the a flag. It's incredibly intuitive.
I see. So it's basically T plus emoji smarts. But what about the core ML model itself? How accurate is the emoji prediction?
That's a great question. The GitHub page doesn't delve into the specifics of the model's accuracy, which is a slight oversight, I think. But judging by the example image, it seems pretty good at picking relevant emojis. More details on the model's training data and performance metrics would be beneficial, though.
You're right, that would be helpful for potential users to assess its capabilities. What about the languages used in the project? Anything interesting there?
Mostly Swift, which makes sense given its core ML integration. There's also some Python and Justfile for build automation, a pretty standard stack for a project like this.
Makes sense. So overall, Tmoji seems like a fun, well-executed project. A nice little utility that adds a bit of personality to the command line. I'm definitely going to check it out.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how a simple idea, combined with some clever machine learning, can create a useful and enjoyable tool. And with 31 stars on GitHub already, it's clearly resonating with other developers. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of emoji-enhanced command line tools. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the groundbreaking results from DeepSeek's R10 and R1 reasoning systems, and what they mean for the future of AGI. The ARC Prize, a competition focused on pushing the boundaries of AI, has just released its analysis, And it's electrifying.
Absolutely. I'm buzzing about this. The ARC prize has always been a great indicator of real progress, not just hype. So what's the big takeaway from this DeepSeek research?
The core finding is that R10, a system trained without human supervision, no supervised fine-tuning or SFT, performs surprisingly well on the ARC-AGI-1 benchmark, achieving around 14% accuracy. This is comparable to R1, which did use SFT, scoring 15.8%. This challenges the prevailing assumption that human labeling is essential for high-performing reasoning systems.
That's a huge deal. It suggests that reinforcement learning alone can drive significant progress, removing a major bottleneck in the development of these systems. But how does it compare to other systems, like OpenAI's O1 and O3?
Exactly. Compared to OpenAI's O1, scoring around 20 to 35% depending on compute, R10 is competitive, especially considering its significantly lower cost. And while O3 boasts impressive 76 to 88% accuracy, it uses both SFT and extensive search/sampling, making it far more computationally expensive. Our R10's simplicity is remarkable.
So what are the implications of this SFT-free approach? Is it a game changer?
It's a massive step towards more efficient and scalable AGI development. The analysis suggests that SFT is crucial for broader generalization, but for specific domains with strong verification mechanisms, like math or coding, it might not be strictly necessary. Think of it like this. R10 creates its own internal language, a domain-specific language, to solve problems. It's incredibly efficient, but perhaps less adaptable to completely new tasks.
I see. So R10 is a specialized tool, while systems like O3 aim for broader applicability. But the efficiency of R10 is undeniably attractive. What about the economic implications mentioned in the analysis?
The analysis highlights two major shifts. First, the increasing willingness to spend more on inference for higher reliability. Users are prioritizing dependable results over raw accuracy. Second, the emergence of inference as a training method. Reasoning systems can generate high-quality training data, creating a positive feedback loop. More users pay for inference, generating more data, improving the model, attracting more users. It's a virtuous cycle. It's a really exciting development.
It's almost like a self-improving system, fueled by economic incentives. That's a fascinating perspective. But what about the limitations of R10? The analysis mentions some challenges.
Right, the paper notes that R10 sometimes produces less readable output and mixes languages. However, the ARC prize testing found this wasn't a major issue on ARC-AGI-1, which focuses on mathematical and coding problems. It's a trade-off. Incredible efficiency for potentially reduced generalizability. It's something to keep an eye on.
So the future looks bright, but there are still challenges to overcome. What's the next big step, in your opinion?
I think the next frontier is to see if we can achieve on-3 level performance without SFT, using a purely RL-based approach like R10 but scaled up. If that's possible, it would be a monumental leap forward. And the open-source nature of R1 will undoubtedly accelerate research in this area. It's a very exciting time for AI.
Absolutely. This research is a significant contribution to the field. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We'll see you next time for another dose of cutting-edge tech news. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating project, building a Type 1 diabetes smartwatch from scratch. It's a truly inspiring story of a father's dedication and ingenuity. Let's get started.
I'm buzzing with excitement. This sounds incredible. So what's the core problem this smartwatch addresses?
Exactly. The core issue is managing type 1 diabetes, specifically the constant monitoring and alerts required. The existing solutions, like CGMs and insulin pumps, while life-changing, often have overwhelming alarms and notifications, especially disruptive for children. Think constant beeping, even during crucial moments like recess or sports.
Right, that sounds incredibly stressful. So why not just use an Apple Watch or a similar device?
That's a great question. The author points out that existing smartwatches are simply too complex for a child. Too many distractions, too many notifications. Plus, The CGM integration isn't ideal. It's often hidden, lacking a clear, comprehensive data view. Simplicity is key here.
I see. So this project focuses on creating a streamlined, single-purpose device. What were the key technical hurdles the author encountered?
Oh, there were many. A major one was establishing a reliable Bluetooth Low Energy (BLE) connection to the iOS app for consistent data retrieval from the Dexcom API. Apple's restrictions on background processes initially posed a significant challenge. It almost killed the project.
Wow. How did he overcome that?
By cleverly reversing the roles, making the smartwatch initiate the connection every 5 minutes. This reliably woke up the iOS app, allowing for data fetching. Ingenious, right? It's a testament to creative problem solving.
Absolutely. What about the hardware side? Did he use off-the-shelf components or design a custom PCB?
Both. He started with breadboards and modules from Adafruit and SparkFun for prototyping, then transitioned to a custom PCB for miniaturization. This involved learning electrical engineering fundamentals and PCB design software. Quite a leap. He even reversed the battery polarity on his first PCB attempt.
Oh no, that's a common mistake. What other challenges did he face?
Haptic motors proved finicky, with variations in resistance affecting performance. He also had to grapple with display options, case fabrications, and even the surprisingly complex process of laminating the display glass. He even used a tortilla press.
A tortilla press? That's amazing. So what was the final result?
He created working prototypes. His son uses one daily, and it's improved his blood glucose awareness. The watch looks like a real smartwatch too, but the journey highlights the massive gap between a prototype and a market-ready product. Manufacturing, distribution, regulatory hurdles. It's a whole other beast.
Absolutely, it sounds like a monumental undertaking. What did he learn from this experience?
So much. The sheer difficulty of hardware development, the importance of creative problem solving, and the surprising cost-effectiveness of overseas PCB manufacturing. He also learned that even a seemingly simple device requires significant optimization for battery life. And he's considering open sourcing the project?
That's fantastic. Making it open source could significantly benefit the T1D community. This whole project is a testament to perseverance and innovation.
Indeed. It's a powerful story of a father's love and a remarkable technical achievement. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of DIY smartwatches and type 1 diabetes management. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into Goethe's Sorcerer's Apprentice, a poem with surprisingly relevant themes for our modern world. It's a piece that speaks to the dangers of unchecked technological advancement. A very timely topic, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I'm buzzing to discuss this. The article highlights the poem's enduring relevance, connecting it to everything from Disney's Fantasia to the potential risks of AI. But what's the core message of Goethe's poem itself?
The core message, I'd argue, is a cautionary tale about the perils of power without wisdom. The apprentice, brimming with confidence, attempts to replicate his master's magic without fully understanding the underlying principles. It's a classic case of hubris, really.
Exactly. He possesses the power to wield magic but lacks the wisdom to control it. This leads to utter chaos, right? The overflowing water, the uncontrollable broomsticks. It's a fantastic image of things spiraling out of control.
Precisely. And the article cleverly connects this to modern anxieties. Think about it. The Sorcerer's Apprentice syndrome. It's a metaphor for our own technological creations, potentially exceeding our ability to manage them. Think self-driving cars, AI, even climate change. We've unleashed powerful forces, and the consequences are far-reaching.
That's a powerful analogy. The article even mentions Frankenstein as a parallel example. Both stories illustrate the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of understanding the full implications of our actions before we act. It's a timeless warning, really.
Yeah. Totally. And the Disney adaptation, while visually stunning, simplifies the narrative somewhat. Goethe's poem is far more nuanced, exploring themes of responsibility and the limitations of human knowledge. It's not just about technology, it's about the human condition itself.
I see your point. The Disney version focuses on the spectacle, the visual chaos. But Goethe's poem delves deeper into the psychological aspects of the apprentice's actions. His arrogance, his overconfidence, his eventual regret. It's a much richer, more complex story.
Right. And the article does a great job of highlighting that. It's not just a simple technology is bad message. It's a much more sophisticated exploration of the relationship between power, knowledge, and responsibility. A really insightful piece, overall.
It certainly is. The article's connection to other works, like E.T.A. Hoffman's The Soul's Adventure on New Year's Eve, further emphasizes the enduring nature of this theme in literature. It's a recurring motif, a cautionary tale that continues to resonate with readers across centuries.
Exactly. It's a testament to the power of Goethe's poem and the article's insightful analysis. It's a reminder that even with incredible advancements, wisdom and careful consideration must always guide our actions. We need to be mindful of the potential consequences of our creations, lest we find ourselves overwhelmed by the very forces we've unleashed.
A truly thought-provoking discussion. Thank you for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Goethe's timeless masterpiece and its modern interpretations.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Join us next time for another fascinating exploration of technology and culture. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into Small GPT, a minimal PyTorch implementation for training small LLMs. It's designed for learning, not production, but it packs a punch. Exciting, right?
Absolutely. So what makes Small GPT so small and yet powerful enough to be interesting?
Well, the core idea is minimalism. It's pure PyTorch, no extra abstractions. This keeps the code clean and easy to understand, perfect for educational purposes. But don't let the simplicity fool you. It uses modern techniques like flash attention for speed, RMS norm and Swigglue for better performance, and efficient sampling methods. It's a surprisingly complete package.
I see. So it's not just about size, it's about efficient implementation. What about training? How does it handle that?
Great question. It supports mixed precision training, float 16, for faster training, gradient accumulation to handle larger batch sizes with limited VRAM, learning rate decay with warm-up for stable convergence, and weight decay and gradient clipping for regularization. It even has built-in tiny stories dataset processing.
Impressive. And what about getting started? Is it difficult to set up?
Not at all. It's a simple pip install, rrequirements.txt. You'll need Python 3.8 plus, PyTorch 2.0 plus with CUDA, and a decent GPU is highly recommended. They even provide two options: train from scratch or use their pre-trained model.
Oh, a pre-trained model. That's convenient. What are the specs of that model?
It's a 409 6-token vocabulary, 8-layer transformer with 8 heads, 512 embedding dimension, trained on roughly 4 billion tokens for about 18.5 hours on a pretty beefy rig. An NVIDIA L4 Tensor Core GPU with 24 gigabytes of VRAM. They achieved a validation loss of 1.0491, which is quite good for a small model. They even included a loss curve graph.
That's a really good validation loss. But 18.5 hours is still a significant training time, even for 4 billion tokens. I wonder if there's room for optimization there, perhaps through different optimizers or hyperparameter tuning.
That's a valid point. Optimization is always a key area for improvement. The authors mention that this is primarily for educational purposes, so further optimization for production use is definitely something to consider. They even suggest scaling up the model size and dataset for better performance in real-world applications. It's a great starting point, though.
Definitely. The sample outputs look pretty good, too. Simple stories, but coherent and grammatically correct. It shows the potential of even small LLMs.
Exactly. And the code is well-structured, easy to follow, and well-documented. It's a fantastic resource for anyone wanting to learn about LLM training from the ground up. Highly recommended.
I agree. Thanks for breaking down Small GPT for us. It's a project that deserves more attention.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a really cool GitHub Marketplace action, Feed to Blue Sky. It's all about automating the process of pushing RSS/ATOM feed updates to the Blue Sky social network. Pretty neat, huh?
Totally neat. So how does this actually work? I mean, I get the basic idea, but what's the technical magic behind it?
Right, so it leverages GitHub Actions. You essentially set up a workflow that runs periodically, fetches your RSS ATOM feed, and then uses a custom template based on handlebars to format the feed entries into Blue Sky-friendly posts.
Handlebars, you say? Interesting. That's a smart choice for templating, given its flexibility. But how does it connect to Blue Sky? Does it use the Blue Sky API directly?
Yeah, it does. But not directly in the way you might think. It uses an app password for authentication. You create one in your Blue Sky settings, and then you store that securely as a secret within your GitHub repository. Crucial for security, of course.
I see. So, no direct API key exposure. Smart move. And what about the frequency of updates? Can you customize that?
Absolutely. The workflow uses a cron expression, which lets you specify how often the action runs. The default is every 5 minutes. But you can change that to suit your needs using a handy tool like crontab.guru. It's super flexible.
That's excellent. So it's not just a simple post to Blue Sky action, it's a whole automated system. What about error handling? Talamus. What happens if there's a problem fetching the feed or posting to BlueSky?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, the documentation doesn't go into extensive detail on error handling. That's something I'd like to see improved. But given the use of GitHub Actions, you could potentially add more robust error handling within the workflow itself.
Yeah, that's a valid point. More detailed error handling would definitely make it more robust. But overall, this seems like a really useful tool for anyone wanting to share their RSS/ATOM feeds on Blue Sky automatically. It's a clever application of GitHub Actions.
Precisely. It's a great example of how you can use GitHub Actions to automate tasks beyond just CI/CD. The use of caching is also a nice touch, improving performance by storing previously fetched feed data. It's a well-structured action.
Definitely. And the fact that it's open source means the community can contribute and improve it further. I'm impressed. Thanks for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the resurgence of decompilation research in 2024. A truly remarkable year, wouldn't you say? It's electrifying.
Absolutely. The sheer volume of top-tier publications is astounding. 30% of all top-tier decompilation papers ever published came out in a single year? That's a seismic shift. What drove this explosion?
Precisely. It's not just the quantity, but the quality too. The field matured significantly. We saw a focus on defining good decompilation. No longer just a subjective debate, but a measurable goal. 4 papers tackled this head-on, using both automated and manual methods. Some focused on achieving source-like fidelity, others on simplicity, and yet others on semantic accuracy. It's a fascinating divergence of approaches, isn't it?
It is. And the role of AI is particularly interesting. I mean, 4 papers used AI techniques, LLMs, BERT models, GNNs, to improve various aspects of decompilation, from symbol prediction to type inference and code simplification. Duon GPT and ReSim, using LLMs, are especially noteworthy.
Exactly. While I personally remain skeptical about AI completely replacing decompilers anytime soon, these results show AI's potential to significantly enhance specific tasks. The improvements in structure recovery, for instance, are quite impressive. It's a powerful tool in the arsenal, you know?
I see your point, but the most exciting aspect might be the shift towards practical application. Almost all of the 2024 papers included open-source implementations. That's a huge leap forward, making the research immediately usable by the industry. This wasn't the case back in 2011, right?
Right. That's a massive change. It fosters collaboration, accelerates progress, and makes the field far more accessible to newcomers. It's a virtuous cycle, really. And let's not forget the impact of Dr. Cristina Cifuentes' World Tour and the Recon 2024 panel. That was a major catalyst for community engagement and excitement.
The panel with Bradis, Gilfanov, and Wagner? Legendary. Hearing their perspectives on the future of decompilation, it was inspiring. In fauna, the consensus seemed to be that there's still so much more to discover. Even Ilfak, the creator of IDA Pro, admitted that breaking a decompiler is surprisingly easy, though, I think he meant breaking it in a technical sense, not literally.
Haha, yes, definitely a technical sense. But the overall message is clear. 2024 was a pivotal year for decompilation. The field is thriving, and the future looks incredibly bright. The increased academic output, the integration of AI, the focus on practical applications, and the renewed community engagement all point to a vibrant and rapidly evolving field.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the dedication and ingenuity of researchers worldwide. And it's exciting to think about what 2025 will bring. The momentum is undeniable.
Indeed. And a big thank you to all the researchers, especially Dustin Fraze and the DARPA Chess program for their support. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Join us again tomorrow for more exciting tech updates. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a truly tragic event. The mid-air collision near Reagan National Airport. A commercial jet and a Black Hawk helicopter. It's just unbelievable.
Unbelievable is right. The initial reports are horrifying. A PSA Airlines Bombardier CRJ-700, a regional jet flying for American Airlines, collided with a U.S. Army Black Hawk. The death toll 18 confirmed fatalities so far, and the search continues.
Yeah, the numbers are just staggering. 60 passengers and 4 crew on the plane, at least partially submerged in the Potomac River, and 3 soldiers in the helicopter. The FAA has already halted flights at Reagan.
And the aftermath, I saw some webcam footage from the Kennedy Center showing the explosion. Absolutely terrifying. It looked like something out of a movie.
I saw that too. It's chilling. There are also images circulating online purportedly showing the search and rescue efforts over the Potomac. It's a developing situation, of course, so details are still emerging, but the initial reports paint a grim picture. The scale of this is immense.
Absolutely, and the investigation will be massive. Determining the cause of the collision will be a top priority. Was it a mechanical failure, pilot error, or something else entirely? It's hard to even speculate at this point.
Right. It's too early to say for sure, but the fact that it happened so close to a major airport, in such a busy airspace, it raises serious questions about air traffic control and safety protocols. It's a tragedy that demands a thorough and transparent investigation.
Absolutely, and the human cost is immeasurable. 18 confirmed deaths, families devastated. It's heartbreaking. The news coverage is already intense, with various outlets reporting different aspects of the incident.
It's interesting to see how different news organizations are framing the story. Some are focusing on the sheer scale of the disaster, others on the ongoing search and rescue, and still others are already speculating about potential causes. It's a complex story with many angles.
And the social media reaction is, well, it's a mixed bag, to say the least. Some are offering condolences. Others are already pointing fingers. And some are even using the tragedy for political gain. It's a shame, really.
I see. It's a really unfortunate side effect of instant news and social media. People are quick to jump to conclusions without all the facts. We need to remember to be respectful of the victims and their families during this difficult time. This is a time for empathy, not speculation.
Precisely. This is a developing story, and we'll continue to update you as more information becomes available. For now, our thoughts are with the victims, their families, and the first responders working tirelessly at the scene.
Absolutely. And remember, folks, to get your news from reputable sources and avoid spreading misinformation. Thank you for listening to Tech Bytes and News. We'll be back tomorrow with more updates. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into Mathesser, a really exciting open-source project. It's essentially a spreadsheet-like interface for Postgres, but so much more powerful. It's game-changing.
I've heard whispers. What makes it so special? Is it just a prettier front end for SQL?
Oh, it's way more than that. Think of it as a bridge between the power of Postgres and the accessibility of a spreadsheet. Anyone, regardless of their technical skills, can view, edit, query, and even collaborate on Postgres data. No SQL knowledge needed.
No SQL? That's incredible. So how does the collaboration aspect work? Is it real time?
It leverages Postgres' native access control, so you can manage permissions directly within Mathisor's UI. It's not explicitly stated as real-time, but given its direct Postgres integration, I'd expect updates to be pretty close to instantaneous. They mention adding collaborators easily in the documentation.
That's smart. So it's self-hosted, right? What are the installation requirements?
Yep, self-hosted. The installation is surprisingly straightforward, using Docker. They have detailed instructions in their documentation, which is quite comprehensive, by the way. It integrates seamlessly into existing infrastructure, which is a huge plus for many organizations.
I see. And what about scalability? Can it handle large data sets?
Absolutely. Mathisor's scalability is directly tied to Postgres, so it can handle databases of any size or complexity. They even highlight its suitability for production environments, which is a bold claim, but given their beta status, it seems they're confident.
That's a strong selling point. But what about the spreadsheet-like interface? Does it limit functionality compared to using SQL directly?
That's a good question. While it simplifies things significantly, it doesn't seem to limit functionality. They mention a query builder that lets you create complex queries without writing SQL, and it supports all the standard Postgres features like schemas, keys, constraints, and even custom data types. It's more about accessibility than limitation.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's essentially a user-friendly wrapper around the power of Postgres. What's the license?
It's GPLv3, so it's completely open source. They also mention some third-party modules under the MIT license. The fact that it's maintained by a nonprofit is also a nice touch, suggesting a commitment to community and accessibility.
This sounds amazing. Where can people learn more?
Definitely check out their GitHub page, which has tons of information, including screenshots and documentation. They also have a website, Matrix chat, and Discord server for community engagement. It's a very active project.
Great. Thanks for the summary. This is definitely one to watch.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating development in image processing. Edge detection at the speed of light. It's mind-blowing.
At the speed of light? That sounds incredibly fast. What's the secret sauce?
Exactly. It's all thanks to optical analog computing. Instead of using traditional digital methods, this new technique uses light itself to perform the calculations. Think of it like this. Instead of a computer crunching numbers, light is doing the work, literally at the speed of light.
So, no electrical power needed? That's a huge energy saving, right?
Precisely. The energy efficiency is a game changer. Current data processing is a massive energy hog, and this method offers a potential solution to that growing problem. The researchers used a simple stack of thin films to achieve this. Amazingly simple.
A simple stack of thin films? How does that even work? I'm a little lost.
It's based on TAM plasmon polaritons, a type of light wave that interacts with the thin films in a way that allows for edge detection. The beauty is that it's incredibly sensitive. They're detecting edges of objects as small as 1 micrometer.
1 micrometer? That's incredibly precise. What are some of the applications?
Oh, the possibilities are huge. High-resolution microscopy is an obvious one, but it also has implications for autonomous vehicles, where edge detection is crucial. And get this, it can even detect the edges of transparent objects, which is a breakthrough for biological imaging. Imagine seeing the edges of cells with unprecedented clarity.
That's wow. But isn't there a limitation? I mean, how versatile is this method with different light sources?
Good point. That's one of the strengths, actually. It works with lamps, LEDs, or lasers, making it compatible with existing technology. It's not limited to specific, expensive lasers.
This is truly revolutionary. What's next for this research?
The researchers are working on switchable devices. Imagine a device where you can turn the edge detection on and off, or even switch between different functions. The potential is truly limitless.
This is incredible. It seems like this technology could revolutionize many fields. Thanks for sharing this exciting news.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bites and News. Join us tomorrow for more exciting breakthroughs. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bites and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into the surprisingly complex world of decoupling capacitors. Specifically, why the ubiquitous 100 nanofarads is, frankly, outdated.
Ooh, sounds juicy. I've always just thrown 100 nanofarads caps on my boards without much thought. What's the fundamental problem with this approach?
The core issue lies in understanding the dynamic current demands of modern digital circuits. It's not just about the clock frequency, it's the incredibly fast rise and fall times of those signals. Think of it like this: a steep cliff versus a gentle slope. The steeper the edge, the higher the frequency components involved.
I see. So faster rise times mean higher frequencies? And that's where the trouble starts?
Exactly. These high-frequency currents encounter parasitic inductance in the PCB traces. Essentially, the wires themselves act like tiny inductors. This inductance creates voltage noise, degrading signal integrity, and potentially causing glitches or EMI.
Right, so the inductance creates a voltage drop proportional to the rate of change of current, di/dt. And that's where the decoupling capacitor comes in, acting as a low-impedance path for these high-frequency currents, right?
Precisely. The capacitor shunts the high-frequency noise to ground, preventing it from affecting the power rails. But here's the kicker. A 100 nanofarads capacitor, while seemingly sufficient in older designs, simply doesn't cut it with today's high-speed components. It's short. Its impedance is too high at the relevant frequencies.
So bigger is better. A 1UF capacitor would have lower impedance?
Yes, but it's not just about the capacitance value. Real-world capacitors have parasitic inductance and resistance, ESL and ESR. This creates a self-resonant frequency, SRF. Below the SRF, the capacitor's impedance decreases with frequency. Above the SRF, the parasitic inductance dominates, and impedance increases. A larger capacitor, especially in a smaller package, will have a higher SRF, extending its effective range.
I'm following, but it's a lot to take in. So why the 100 nanofarads obsession then? It's not just bad practice, is it?
It's a legacy issue. In the 80s, capacitor technology was less advanced. 100 nanofarads was a good compromise between cost, availability, and performance. The big little approach, 100 NF plus 1 UF, was a workaround for the limitations of the time. But now, high capacitance, low ESL capacitors are cheap and readily available.
So we should just ditch the 100 nanofarads and go straight for something like 1 UF or even larger, in the smallest package possible, right next to the IC?
Generally, yes. The cost difference is negligible, and the improvement in performance is significant. Just be mindful of inrush current if you're using many large capacitors on a single rail, and avoid placing them too close to sensitive control loops.
Got it. This has been a real eye-opener. Thanks for clearing up this long-standing mystery.
My pleasure. Remember, proper decoupling is crucial for stable and reliable circuits. And don't be afraid to leave those 100 nanofarads relics behind. Thanks for listening to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into NASA's Sentry system, a crucial tool for monitoring potential Earth impacts. It's pretty intense stuff.
Right. I've always been fascinated by near-Earth objects. So Sentry, what's the core function? Is it just flagging potentially hazardous asteroids?
Exactly. Sentry's main job is to analyze asteroid orbits and calculate the probability of them hitting Earth. It doesn't just flag them. It provides a detailed risk assessment, using sophisticated algorithms to predict potential impact dates, probabilities, and the energy released upon impact. It's not just a simple yes or no, it's a nuanced calculation.
So it's not just about identifying the asteroids, but also quantifying the risk? That's a huge difference. How does it actually do that? What metrics does it use?
Yeah, the quantification is key. It uses two main scales, the Torino scale and the Palermo scale. The Torino scale is simpler. focusing on the likelihood and potential energy of an impact within the next 100 years. The Palermo scale is more nuanced, considering the background risk of impacts over time. Both are crucial for understanding the severity of a potential threat.
Interesting. And what about the data itself? How does Sentry gather and process that information to make these calculations? It must be a massive dataset.
It is. Sentry uses observational data from various telescopes around the world. Think of it as a giant puzzle. Each observation is a piece, and Sentry uses sophisticated algorithms to piece together the asteroid's orbit. The more observations, the more accurate the prediction. The system also accounts for uncertainties in those observations, which is crucial for accurate risk assessment.
So the accuracy depends heavily on the quality and quantity of observational data? That makes sense. Are there any limitations to Sentry's capabilities? Are there any types of asteroids it might miss or struggle to analyze?
Absolutely. Smaller asteroids are harder to detect, and their orbits are more susceptible to perturbations from other celestial bodies, making predictions more challenging. Also, the further out we look, the less precise our predictions become due to accumulating uncertainties. It's a constant refinement process, improving as we gather more data.
Right, that's a crucial point. So it's not a perfect system, but it's constantly evolving and improving. What about the output? How is this information presented to scientists and the public?
The output is presented in tables and graphs, detailing potential impact dates, probabilities, and the associated energy. The color coding of the tables provides a quick visual assessment of the risk level, ranging from white, no threat, to red, significant threat. The data is also available via an API for researchers and other organizations.
That's amazing! It sounds like a vital system for planetary defense. It's reassuring to know that there's such a sophisticated system constantly monitoring the skies. What's next for Sentry? Any planned improvements or upgrades?
Oh, absolutely. Sentry is constantly being updated with improved algorithms and incorporating data from new telescopes and surveys. The goal is always to increase the accuracy of predictions and extend the time frame for which we can make reliable forecasts. It's a continuous effort to refine our understanding of near-Earth objects and improve our planetary defense capabilities.
It's incredible to think about the technology and the dedication behind this project. Thanks for explaining it all so clearly. It's fascinating stuff.
My pleasure. And remember, listeners, stay tuned to Tech Bytes and News for more updates on the latest in space exploration and planetary defense. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into some fantastic advice for aspiring bloggers, gleaned from a recent post. It's all about finding your unique voice and making the most of your online space. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. I'm particularly interested in how to develop a unique style, something that really stands out in the crowded blogosphere. What are some key takeaways from this piece?
Well, the core message is to embrace your quirks. The author emphasizes that what makes you odd is precisely what makes you interesting. Don't try to emulate others. Instead, let your personality shine through. Your contradictions, your unique perspective, those are your strengths. Think of it like a delicious recipe. A blend of unexpected ingredients creates something truly special.
I see. So authenticity is paramount. But how do you practically achieve that? The post mentions writing in a chat-like style. Is that really the best approach?
It's suggested as a way to tap into your natural voice. You know, the way you communicate spontaneously with friends. It's about writing from the heart, from emotion, not just from your head. It's about capturing that raw energy. But it's not a license to be sloppy. The author stresses the importance of pre-writing preparation, research, note-taking, organizing your thoughts. Think of it as a musician practicing scales before an improvisation.
That's a great analogy. So it's about preparation and then letting loose? What about the actual structure and length of blog posts? The post suggests starting small, right?
Exactly. Start with shorter pieces, maybe 500 words, with a simple format. Think problem solution or a straightforward list. It's about building momentum and refining your skills. The author even suggests writing 100 posts, focusing on improving one aspect at a time, the title, the structure, the descriptions, to gradually hone your craft.
100 posts. That sounds daunting, but the incremental approach makes it seem manageable. What about dealing with writer's block or feeling like your work isn't good enough?
The author suggests Kafka's approach. If a draft feels terrible, don't agonize over it. Just start fresh. It's about generating ideas and exploring different avenues, not about perfectionism at the initial stage. Editing is important, of course, but the focus should be on cutting the weakest parts, not endlessly polishing every sentence.
That's a really insightful point. It's about embracing the process, not just the product. And what about choosing a topic? Should you write about what you think people want to read, or what you're passionate about?
The author strongly advocates for writing about what you care about. A blog is your space, your platform to explore your obsessions. It's about attracting readers who resonate with your unique perspective, not trying to please a generic audience. It's about building a community of like-minded individuals.
That's empowering. It's about creating a space where being yourself is not just accepted, but celebrated. It's about building a community around shared interests and passions. This advice is incredibly valuable for anyone thinking about starting a blog.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey, not a race. Embrace the process, learn from your mistakes, and most importantly, have fun. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating development, a new programming language called Jank, aiming to bridge the gap between the dynamism of Clojure and the performance of C++.
Wow, that sounds ambitious. So what makes Jank so special? Is it just another language trying to be all things to all people?
Not quite. It's a native Clojure dialect built on LLVM. Think of it as Clojure, but with the power of native compilation and a minimal runtime. The creator, a former EA engineer, wanted the interactive, value-oriented feel of Clojure, but without the performance limitations.
Interesting. So it's essentially getting the best of both worlds. The ease of use of a functional language like Clojure, combined with the speed of C++? How does it achieve that?
Precisely. It leverages LLVM's JIT compiler for speed and efficiency. The key is its C++ foundation, providing a solid base for native compilation. It's not just about speed, though. It also aims for better error reporting, seamless C++ interoperability, and improved memory management compared to standard Clojure.
Hold on a second. Seamless C++ interop? That's a huge claim. Many languages struggle with that. How does Jank manage it?
That's one of the big challenges, and a key part of its design. The details aren't fully public yet, but the creator highlights it as a major focus. The idea is to allow developers to leverage existing C++ libraries and codebases within their Jank projects without major headaches. It's a significant undertaking, but if successful, it could be a game changer.
I see. So beyond the technical aspects, what are some potential use cases? Is it just a niche language for hardcore programmers?
Not at all. While it's certainly powerful enough for low-level programming, the creator envisions broader applications. Gaming is a big one. Imagine an interactive, JIT-compiled Lisp working seamlessly within game engines like Unreal or Unity. But it also has potential in GUI development, where Clojure has historically been weaker, and even in data science, as some folks at CERN are exploring.
That's quite a range. It sounds like a very ambitious project. What's the current status of Jank?
It's still under development, but it's already generating significant buzz within the Clojure community. The creator recently quit his job to focus on it full-time, which speaks volumes about his commitment. He's outlined a pretty extensive roadmap for 2025, including things like better error handling, NREPL support, and packaging for major operating systems. He's aiming for a release this year.
That's exciting. It will be interesting to see how it evolves and whether it lives up to its ambitious goals. The name Jank is certainly memorable, though. I wonder about the choice of that name.
Yeah, the name is definitely unconventional. The creator says it's a self-deprecating choice, aiming for a humorous contrast with the high-performance goals. He hopes that as the language matures and becomes more polished, the name will become an affectionate term rather than a literal description.
A bold strategy. Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. Thanks for breaking down this exciting new development in programming languages for us.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the latest tech news. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into Christopher Butler's insightful piece, Digital Reality, Digital Shock, exploring the impact of the digital revolution on the generation that came of age with it. It's a fascinating look at how technology shaped a generation's worldview, isn't it?
Absolutely. The article really resonated with me. It highlights the unique experience of those who grew up alongside the internet's explosive growth, right? It wasn't just about learning new technology. It was about a fundamental shift in how we perceive reality.
Precisely. Butler uses Neuromancer and the Matrix as powerful metaphors. Neuromancer, published in '84, predicted the interconnected digital world, but the Matrix, released in '99, captured the ontological shock of that generation, that feeling of, reality being questionable.
Yeah, that red pill moment. The article suggests that for this generation, the typical coming-of-age disorientation was amplified by the simultaneous technological upheaval. The world wasn't just changing, it was being redefined by digital systems. It's a profound shift.
Exactly. And the timing was uncanny. The Y2K scare, a contested election, and 9/11, all these events created a perfect storm of anxiety. The Matrix's paranoia felt less like science fiction and more like a reflection of their collective psychological state. A generational dysphoria, as Butler puts it.
I see. So this double shock, personal and technological, shaped how this generation approaches technology. They're fluent in digital spaces, but they also possess a healthy skepticism. They've witnessed firsthand how quickly things can change.
That's a really important point. This inherent skepticism, this awareness of the code behind the digital curtain, is a direct result of that initial shock. It fosters a desire for transparency and empathy in technology design. It's a unique perspective.
I'd argue, though, that while the article emphasizes the negative aspects of this ontological shock, it also highlights a positive outcome. A generation deeply aware of the potential for both good and bad in technology. It's not just paranoia, it's informed caution.
That's a great point. It's not simply fear, but a nuanced understanding of the power and potential pitfalls of technology. They're not just users, they're critical observers, shaping the future of technology with this unique perspective. It's a powerful legacy.
Absolutely. Butler's personal experience resonates, and it makes the argument all the more compelling. It's a reminder that technological advancements aren't just about gadgets. They profoundly impact our understanding of reality and our place within it.
And that's a crucial takeaway. Thank you for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion as insightful as we did. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into the fascinating and slightly unsettling world of the Soviet shoe factory principle. It's a concept that resonates far beyond the fallen Soviet Union, impacting everything from software development to modern business practices. Think about it.
Right. I'm already intrigued. So what exactly is the Soviet shoe factory principle?
In essence, it highlights how easily measurable factors often dominate decision-making, even when they're not the most important ones. The classic example, of course, is the Soviet shoe factory pressured to increase production. They focused on the easily quantifiable metric, the number of shoes produced, and ended up flooding the market with children's shoes while adults faced a crippling shortage. Crazy, right?
Absolutely crazy. It's a perfect illustration of how focusing on easily measurable metrics can lead to unintended and disastrous consequences. It's like optimizing for the wrong thing, isn't it?
Precisely. And this isn't just a historical anecdote. The principle applies across many fields. In software, we see it all the time. Think about prioritizing aesthetics over functionality, or cramming in every feature from the spec sheet regardless of user experience. The result? A beautiful, unusable mess.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Projects that look amazing on paper but fall apart under real-world use. It's a classic case of focusing on what's easy to measure, lines of code, features implemented, rather than what truly matters, user satisfaction and system stability.
Exactly. Another example is the overemphasis on meeting project milestones without considering the overall quality or long-term maintainability of the software. It's a short-sighted approach that often backfires spectacularly.
And it's not just limited to software, is it? The article mentions examples in other industries, like the toy factory making increasingly flimsy balls to meet a production quota. It's a universal problem.
You're absolutely right. It's a systemic issue that affects any organization where easily measurable metrics are prioritized over broader, more holistic goals. Even in seemingly unrelated fields, like marketing or sales, the same principle applies. It's a subtle but powerful force shaping decisions.
So how do we avoid falling into this trap? How do we ensure that we're focusing on the right metrics? It seems like a difficult problem to solve.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It requires a conscious effort to identify and prioritize the truly important factors, even if they're harder to measure. It involves a shift in mindset, a willingness to look beyond the easily quantifiable and consider the bigger picture. It's about understanding the context and the underlying goals.
It's about thinking critically about the metrics we choose and understanding their limitations. We need to be aware of the potential for unintended consequences and actively work to mitigate them.
Precisely. And it's a continuous process, not a one-time fix. We need to regularly review and adjust our metrics to ensure they're still aligned with our overall goals. A constant learning process.
It's a fascinating and important topic, and one that deserves a lot more attention. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into InstantDB's experience, upgrading their Aurora Postgres instance from version 13 to 16, achieving zero downtime. Pretty impressive, right?
Zero downtime? That's incredible. I'm already hooked. What was their initial approach?
Initially, they explored the easy route. In-place upgrades. But even with their relatively modest scale, less than a terabyte of data, an in-place upgrade took 15 minutes. Unacceptable for their global user base, you know?
Totally understandable. So they tried a blue-green deployment?
Exactly. Seemed like a perfect solution, right? Except, they hit a snag. Active replication slots, crucial for their sync servers, were incompatible with blue-green deployments. The AWS docs didn't explicitly mention this limitation. A classic gotcha!
Oh man, so what was Plan B?
Plan B was a manual upgrade, a three-step process. Create a Postgres 16 replica, switch subscriptions to the new replica, and then switch writes. Sounds straightforward, but it wasn't without its challenges.
I bet. What kind of challenges?
First, they tried a clone upgrade replicate approach, similar to Lyft's method. But they encountered issues with custom Postgres functions and, even worse, data loss. They traced the function problem to search paths. A simple fix, but a crucial one.
Wow, that's a scary situation. What about the data loss?
Yeah, that was a real nail-biter. They initially lost 13 transactions. They realized their initial approach had too many steps. So they switched to creating a fresh Postgres 16 database and replicating from scratch. This time, no data loss.
That's a relief. So, they had their replica. What about switching writes?
Ah, the climax. They initially considered a stop-the-world approach, pausing all writes briefly. But they aimed for zero downtime. They cleverly used an algorithm that paused new transactions, waited for active ones to complete, and then switched writes to the new replica.
That's brilliant. But surely there were more hurdles?
Yes. They initially encountered unique constraint violations on their transactions table because Postgres doesn't replicate sequence data. A simple fix, but it highlights the importance of thorough testing. They adjusted their failover function to increment the sequences.
Amazing! So they finally achieved zero downtime?
Yes. After a 3.5-second pause, the failover completed seamlessly. No one even noticed. They even used their REPL to execute the failover function in production. Pretty bold move.
That's incredibly impressive. What are their plans for future improvements?
They plan to optimize their algorithm to avoid pausing reads and to implement a two-phase commit approach for better scalability. They're already thinking ahead.
This whole story is a masterclass in database upgrades. Thanks for sharing this fascinating case study.
You're welcome. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Join us tomorrow for more exciting tech discussions. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating article about leveraging Rust and NIFs for PDF parsing within the Elixir ecosystem. It's a powerful combination, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. PDF parsing is notoriously tricky. Elixir's elegance sometimes clashes with the low-level complexities of PDF structures. This approach seems like a brilliant workaround. What's the core idea here?
The core is using Rust, a language known for its speed and memory safety, to handle the heavy lifting of PDF parsing. We then bridge the gap to Elixir using native implemented functions, or NIFs. This lets us keep the benefits of Elixir's high-level abstractions while gaining the performance boost of Rust. It's a best-of-both-worlds scenario, right?
Precisely. The article highlights the drawbacks of cloud-based solutions like AWS Lambda for this task. Network latency, increased costs, external service dependencies. It all adds up, especially when dealing with many PDFs. A native solution is far more efficient and robust, I agree.
Exactly. The author cleverly uses the Extractus Rust library, which is apparently 25 times faster than some competitors. That's a significant performance jump. They also emphasize the zero-cost abstractions aspect of Rust, meaning the high-level code compiles to highly optimized machine code, comparable to handwritten C. Amazing, isn't it?
I see. So the process involves creating a new Elixir project, adding the Rustler dependency to interface with Rust, and then generating a Rust project using mixrustler.new. The article then walks through implementing the core PDF extraction logic in Rust, using the Extractakeras library, and exposing it as a NIF for Elixir to call. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, that's a great summary. The author even points out the use of the dirty CPU schedule attribute in the Rust NIF. This cleverly handles the task scheduling, preventing blocking issues and simplifying the development process. It avoids the complexities of manual C-based NIF implementations. Clever.
I'm curious about the live view aspect. Why use live view for the user interface?
Live view provides a real-time, interactive user experience. Users can upload a PDF, and the results are displayed dynamically without full-page reloads. It's a perfect fit for this kind of application, providing immediate feedback. The article includes the live view code, showing how to handle file uploads, call the Rust NIF, and display the extracted text and metadata. Pretty neat, huh?
Very neat. The article also shows how to improve the presentation of the metadata using a custom Elixir module for JSON encoding and decoding. This makes the output much more user-friendly. It's a nice touch, improving the overall developer experience.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how to structure the code for better readability and maintainability. And the author doesn't stop there. They also discuss deployment considerations, suggesting strategies for building the Rust code within a CI/CD pipeline or Docker environment. They even link to a helpful fly.io blog post on deploying Elixir apps with Rust NIFs. Very thorough, I must say.
It's a comprehensive guide, covering everything from setup to deployment. And the shoutouts at the end are a nice touch, acknowledging the contributions of other projects and resources. It's a great example of community engagement. I really appreciate that.
Me too. It's a well-written article that effectively demonstrates a practical solution to a common problem. The combination of Elixir and Rust, facilitated by NIFs, offers a compelling approach to PDF parsing, providing both elegance and performance. This is a great example of how to combine the strengths of different programming languages for optimal results. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Until next time.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Airflow, a video player that's anything but ordinary. It's not just another FFmpeg wrapper. It's a meticulously crafted piece of software designed for peak performance. I'm particularly excited about its unique approach to video processing.
Yeah, I saw the marketing materials. They claim it pushes Chromecast, Apple TV, and AirPlay 2 devices to their limits. Is that really true? I'm skeptical of such bold claims.
That's a fair point. But their custom-built pipeline, developed over years, seems to back up the claim. They're not just wrapping FFmpeg. They're leveraging its components within a much more sophisticated system. They can handle virtually any video format and codec, even streaming 4K HDR HEVC files to those devices. something many other players can't do natively.
Wow, 4K HDR/HEVC. That's impressive. But what about the audio? Many players struggle with multi-channel audio and advanced features.
Airflow excels there too. It boasts full multi-channel support, including DD+ pass-through with Dolby Atmos. And get this, an adaptive volume booster and limiter for late-night viewing, spatial headphone downmix for surround sound, and detailed AV sync adjustment. It's incredibly comprehensive.
Incredible! And what about subtitles? That's often a weak point in many media players.
Airflow handles embedded and external subtitles seamlessly. Unlike most players that extract embedded subtitles before playback, Airflow processes them directly, saving processing power and time. It supports all widely used formats, including VOBSub, and even integrates OpenSubtitles.org search. It's incredibly efficient.
That's amazing. But what about those picture-based subtitles, like in some DVDs and Blu-rays? Those are notoriously difficult to handle.
Exactly. That's where their real-time subtitle text recognition, OCR, comes in. Airflow transparently extracts text from picture subtitles, rendering them on the target device like regular text subtitles. This avoids the massive CPU load that burning them into the video would cause, especially with 4K videos. It's a brilliant solution.
Ingenious. So it's not just about the core functionality, it's the attention to detail. The scrubbing preview, polished UI, multiple playlists, and even a built-in speed test for Chromecast. It's a complete package.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the free remote control companion app for Android and iPhone. It's a nice touch that adds to the overall user experience. Plus, it's a one-time purchase, no subscriptions.
I see. It sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any downsides? Any limitations?
Well, their focus is on specific devices. Chromecast, Apple TV, and AirPlay 2 TVs. It's not designed for streaming to every device imaginable, but for its target audience, it seems exceptionally well optimized. It's a trade-off, but a worthwhile one, I think.
I agree. It's a niche product, but it seems to fill that niche perfectly. The level of engineering and attention to detail is truly impressive. Thanks for highlighting this.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating development in the AI world, OpenAI's accusation against China's DeepSeek. It's a real nail-biter.
Right. OpenAI and DeepSeek, huh? This sounds like a major story. What's the gist?
Essentially, OpenAI claims DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company, used their model to train a competing AI. They say they have evidence. It's a pretty serious allegation.
Wow, that's a bold claim. What kind of evidence are we talking about here? Is it something concrete or more circumstantial?
The article doesn't go into specifics, unfortunately. It's behind a paywall, but the implication is that OpenAI has some pretty strong data suggesting unauthorized use of their model. Think code similarities, maybe even data traces.
I see. So this isn't just a we think they might have situation. This is a we have evidence situation. That's a big difference. What are the potential implications?
Huge. For starters, it could trigger a major legal battle. Think intellectual property rights, international trade disputes. The works. It also highlights the challenges of protecting AI models and data in a globalized world. It's a complex issue.
Absolutely. And it raises questions about the ethics of AI development, doesn't it? Using someone else's model to shortcut the development process. That's not exactly playing fair. It's a bit shady, to say the least.
Yeah. It definitely raises ethical concerns. It could set a dangerous precedent, If this kind of thing becomes commonplace, it could stifle innovation. Everyone would be too busy protecting their IP to actually build anything new. It's a real catch-22.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance between open collaboration and protecting proprietary technology. This case really throws that into sharp relief. What do you think the outcome will be?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's hard to say. It could go to court, resulting in significant financial penalties for DeepSeek, or, perhaps, a settlement could be reached. Either way, it's going to be a landmark case.
Definitely. This is a story we'll be following closely. It's a fascinating glimpse into the complexities of the AI landscape and the legal battles that are sure to come. It's a wild ride.
Absolutely. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time with more exciting developments from the world of technology. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a seriously alarming discovery by Wiz Research, a major data leak from DeepSeek, a prominent Chinese AI startup. Whoa!
A data leak? That sounds intense. What kind of data are we talking about here?
We're talking about a publicly accessible ClickHouse database. This wasn't some minor oversight. This database gave full control over DeepSeek's internal data. Think complete access.
Full control? Yikes. So what exactly was exposed?
Over 1 million lines of log streams. We're talking chat history, API secrets, back-end details, the works. Seriously sensitive stuff. Think of it like leaving your company's entire blueprint on a park bench.
That's terrifying. How did Wiz Research even find this?
They started with standard reconnaissance techniques, mapping DeepSeek's internet-facing subdomains. Most were benign, but then they found some unusual open ports, 8,123 and 9,000. Bingo!
So they just stumbled upon it? That's a bit concerning, isn't it? It highlights the importance of regular security audits, right?
Absolutely. These ports led to the exposed ClickHouse database, accessible without any authentication. They used ClickHouse's HTTP interface to run queries, and, boom, they had access to the log_stream table with all that sensitive data.
And what was in that log_stream table specifically?
Timestamps, span names referencing internal DeepSeek API endpoints, and the most crucial part, plain text logs including chat history, API keys, back-end details, and operational metadata. It's a goldmine for attackers.
Wow. So what's the takeaway here? Beyond the obvious secure your databases message,
The rapid adoption of AI services without adequate security is a huge risk. This highlights that basic security practices, like properly securing databases, are still crucial, even for cutting-edge AI companies. It's not just about futuristic threats, it's about the fundamentals.
that's a really important point. It's easy to get caught up in the hype of AI and overlook the basics. This incident serves as a stark reminder.
Exactly. Wiz Research responsibly disclosed the issue to DeepSeek, and they acted quickly to secure the database. But this incident underscores the need for robust security practices across the entire AI ecosystem. We need to prioritize security as much as innovation.
Absolutely. Thanks for breaking down this critical security issue for us. A very important discussion indeed.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We'll catch you next time with more of the latest tech news and insights. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the daily roundup of Tech Bytes and News. See you again tomorrow. Goodbye.